Hey, what's up guys? Today we are going to talk about views in SharePoint Online sites and how we can manage them by using PowerShell PnP. So I'm in my tenant, and if I go to see for the views, then you can see that I only have the all documents view, which is the default view. Now let's switch to the code, and I'm using Visual Studio Code, which is free. And the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to connect to this site collection by using the Connect PnP Online, and I provide the URL. Then, just to make sure that we have the exact same thing that we've seen in the UI, let's run the Get PnP view. And indeed, we have the all documents view that we've seen previously. Now, before creating my view, I want to see all the fields or columns that I have available. So I'm running the Get PnP field, and I'm providing the document library. So as you can see, I have a bunch of fields available to me. And what's actually important here is the internal name that you see here in the middle, because that's some sort of unique identifier. If you look on the left under the title column, this is something that we can technically understand. So document modified by compared to the internal name, which will be modified underscore and so on. And the reason why the internal name is actually important is because sometimes the name that you can read is not unique. So you would have the exact same name. So if I take the example of the name in here, and if I scroll down a little bit more, you can see that I have 3 over name. And so the only way that PowerShell would actually know exactly which one you want to use is by using the internal name. So with that being said, let's create our first view. So we're going to create a personal view, and here I'm using splatting, which is really great when your command is just too long and you don't need to scroll if you do this. To create a new view, we are going to use the add PnP view commandlet, and we provide a few parameters. So we're going to give the document library, we're going to give a title to this view. In that case, I'm also going to use the personal switch. And for the fields or the columns, I am providing the internal name of each column that I want. So let's run this. Now my view has been created, and let's have a look in the UI. Gonna refresh the page, and if I click on all documents, then you can see that my personal view has been created. If I click on it, I have different fields that are displayed. Great. Now let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and let's close this one. Now we're going to create a public view. It's the exact same process. You provide the document library, you give it a name, and then you choose the columns that you want to display on this view. But this time I'm going to set this view as the default. And it's only possible because this is a public view. You cannot set as the default a personal view. And it's also because I want to show you something after when we actually going to delete those views, which is something to be aware of. But for now, let's just run this one. Everything went okay, my view has been created, and it's also set as the default. Okay, great. Let's have a look at the UI. Refresh the page and look at the views. And I have my public view that has been created. Let's see what it looks like. And this view is now different. And just to prove a point that this one is definitely the default view, I'm just going to close the site and go back to it. Go back to the documents library. And you can see that my public view is now the default view. Let's go back to the code, and we can close this now. And it's time to delete the views. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the Get PnP view I'm going to target this document library, and I'm going to look for the views that are like my P. And the reason why is because I've only created 2 views, and I know I've named them my perso view or my public view, and I'm not going to use a CSV file or something else. So with that commandlet, I'm going to store the results in a variable that I'm going to call all views. But first, I'm going to show you what we're going to have. So I'm just going to run this part. And as you can see, it returns my 2 views. Then we're going to go through a simple for each loop where for each item, so for each view that we have in all the views, we're going to use the remove PnP view, provide the document library, and then the item title. I'm also using the force parameter because I don't want to be prompt for confirmation every time I'm going to be deleting a view. And everything went well. I had no issue. I'm just going to run the get PnP view one last time. And we're back to the beginning where we only had the old documents view available. Now, I'm going to show you what happens when I'm going to go into the UI and I'm going to refresh the page, because remember that one of this view, the public view, was actually the default view. So I'm going to switch over to the UI and I'm going to refresh the page. And look what we've got here. We've got a 404 not found. So don't panic when you see that. And let's go back to the site collection. And you can notice that on the left we actually do not have our documents, but if I go into site contents, I can see that my document library is still there. And if I click on it, I can still access it. So why did it actually throw me a 404 error? Well, that's because you actually deleted the default view. If I go into the views there, I'm going to need to set this view into the default view. And even if I refresh the page right now, it's not actually putting the documents library back on the quick launch. So what I'm going to do now is I'm only going to go into the library settings, and under list name, description, and navigation, I'm going to put it back on the quick launch and click save. And now you can see it's back in here. But we can edit and actually put it back in place if you want to. So just click on the ellipsis and move that up where it was. You're not forced to do that, but and click save. So now it's back the way it was. And if I click on documents, then I have my document library. I have only one view, and this one is the default view now.